The cameras flash, the headlines scream, and the Harris family name is once again at the center of chaos. Rap legend T.I., known for his sharp lyrics and even sharper tongue, is now fighting the toughest battle of his life, saving his son, King Harris, from a fate that's left fans across the country in total disbelief. It's a story that has Atlanta buzzing, a story filled with family tension, betrayal, and a father's desperate attempt to protect his legacy. Reports claim that King, the once brash, spotlight-loving son of T.I. and Tiny, has landed himself in serious legal trouble after a shocking altercation spiraled out of control. And now, behind the scenes, T.I. is said to be moving heaven and earth to keep his son out of prison. But not everyone in the family is on his side. Sources close to the situation say arguments have erupted inside the Harris household, with tears, accusations, and even threats tearing the family apart. This ain't about fame anymore, it's about family, one insider revealed. As the walls close in and emotions run high, fans are left wondering, how far will T.I. go to protect his son? And what secrets will be exposed in the process? It all began on a humid Friday night in Atlanta, when the air was thick with music, lights, and the constant flash of cameras outside a downtown nightclub. King Harris, known to many as the bold and outspoken son of rapper T.I. and singer Tiny Harris, had been seen earlier in the evening celebrating with friends. What was supposed to be a fun night out quickly turned into a scene straight out of a reality show gone wrong. Witnesses say an argument broke out between King and another group, reportedly over a minor misunderstanding involving a VIP section. But things escalated fast, too fast. By midnight, videos began surfacing online, showing King shouting at security guards and being restrained by friends. "Do you know who I am?" he allegedly yelled, his voice breaking through the chaos as cameras rolled. What started as verbal tension turned physical. And before anyone could process what was happening, sirens were wailing, and police lights painted the streets in red and blue. Within hours, King Harris was in handcuffs. Fans couldn't believe it. The son of a music icon arrested once again. It's time for a serious charge that could lead to jail time. Back at home, T.I. was said to be furious. Insiders close to the family described how he received the news while in the middle of a studio session. When they told him King had been arrested, he dropped everything. One source revealed, "You could see the disbelief on his face. He kept saying, 'Not again, man, not my son.'" Tiny, on the other hand, was heartbroken. She reportedly broke down in tears, pleading with T.I. to stay calm. But calm was the last thing on his mind. The proud father, who had always spoken about teaching his kids discipline and self-respect, now faced a public crisis that threatened to undo years of hard work rebuilding his family's image. By the next morning, the internet was on fire. Social media platforms exploded with hashtags like #FreeKing and #PrayForT. Fans were divided. Some stood by the family, arguing that King was just a young man making mistakes, while others criticized his behavior, calling it spoiled and reckless. News outlets picked up the story, adding fuel to the fire. One reporter claimed that T.I. had stormed into the police station demanding to see his son, while another alleged that the rapper's lawyers were already working behind the scenes to secure King's release. Inside the holding cell, however, King wasn't the confident young man fans had seen online. According to a source who claimed to have spoken with one of the guards, King looked shaken, pacing back and forth and muttering under his breath. He kept saying his dad was going to fix it, the source said, but you could tell he was scared. Meanwhile, tensions at home continued to rise. Tani reportedly tried to reach out to her husband, urging him not to make things worse by confronting the officers directly. "Let the lawyers handle it," she supposedly said over the phone. But T.I. wasn't listening. Those who know him say he's always been fiercely protective of his children, and this time, that protectiveness turned into rage. By noon, he arrived at the precinct with his entourage, determined to get answers. Witnesses recall seeing him outside the building, talking to an officer in a tone that was calm but tense. "My son's not a criminal," he said, according to one bystander. "He made a mistake, but y'all not about to treat him like no thug?" The confrontation didn't end there. Rumors suggest that T.I. got into a heated exchange with one of the officers after being denied immediate access to his son. Security had to intervene before things escalated further. "You could feel the tension," a witness explained. "He was angry, but more than that, he looked desperate, like a father trying to keep his family from falling apart." As hours passed, Tiny arrived with tears in her eyes. She was quieter, more composed, but clearly heartbroken. She just wanted to see her baby. One insider said. The scene outside the station turned chaotic as reporters and fans gathered, filming every moment. When T.I. and Tiny finally stepped out, their faces told the story: exhaustion, fear, and the weight of public scrutiny pressing down on them. Later that evening, King was finally released on bail. Cameras captured the moment he walked out, trying to hide his face beneath a hoodie. T.I. placed a firm hand on his shoulder, guiding him toward their car. No words were exchanged, but the tension was thick enough to cut through. The ride home was reportedly silent, except for the sound of Tiny softly crying in the back seat. Behind closed doors, the real storm began. T.I. and King reportedly got into a heated argument that shook the entire household. "Do you even realize what you've done?" T.I. shouted, pacing the living room. "You think this is a game? You think being famous means you can do whatever you want?" King, his voice trembling, fired back, "I didn't do nothing wrong. They came at me first. You always think I'm the problem." Tiny tried to step in, pleading with both of them to calm down, but the shouting only grew louder. One family friend described it as the worst argument they'd ever had. Emotions ran high, voices cracked, and at one point, T.I. reportedly slammed his hand against the table in frustration. "You're gonna end up in prison if you keep living like this," he warned. "And when that happens, don't expect the fame or the fans to save you." The argument ended with King storming off to his room, slamming the door behind him. I sat in silence for several minutes, his hands pressed against his forehead. Tiny, still shaken, whispered, "He's scared. Tip. He's just scared." But T.I. only sighed, saying quietly, "So am I." The next morning, the headlines were worse than before. Paparazzi photos of King leaving the station spread like wildfire. And gossip blogs began speculating about what really happened inside that nightclub. Some claimed that King had been protecting a friend. Others suggested he had thrown the first punch. Regardless of the truth, the damage was done, and the Harris family's reputation was once again on the line. But behind the public chaos, something deeper was brewing. According to sources close to the family, T.I. began calling in favors, reaching out to lawyers, producers, and even old friends in law enforcement to see what could be done. He wanted the charges dropped, no matter the cost. He told his team, "I'm not letting my boy go down like that," said one insider. But it wasn't just about keeping King out of jail, it was about keeping his family together. Tiny, meanwhile, was growing increasingly worried. She confided in a close friend, saying she feared the situation would tear the family apart. "It's like we're reliving every mistake all over again," she said tearfully. "I just want my son to learn, but not like this." As the week went on, rumors began swirling that the prosecutors were looking to make an example out of King because of his celebrity status. That news only pushed T.I. further into protective father mode. He reportedly confronted one of the attorneys assigned to the case, saying, "If you want to teach somebody a lesson, teach me, not my son." But even with his influence and connections, the legal process moved slowly and the emotional toll on the family grew heavier by the day. Still, through all the chaos, fans continued to flood social media with support. "We stand with T.I., one post read. A father's love is powerful. Don't count him out yet." But others weren't as forgiving. "He raised him like that," one critic tweeted. "Now he's paying the price." As the sun set over Atlanta 1 week after the arrest, the Harris home was silent. The laughter that once filled its halls had been replaced with whispers, arguments behind closed doors, and the sound of worry that refused to fade. Yet somewhere deep down, T.I. knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of a battle that would test every ounce of strength, patience, and love he had left. The second week after King's arrest brought no peace, only more tension. More headlines and more whispers in the industry. What began as a family crisis had now spiraled into a full-blown media circus. Talk shows, blogs, and gossip channels dissected every move the Harris family made. One morning, a video surfaced showing T.I. leaving a courthouse, his face tight with frustration. Reporters shouted questions from every angle, but he kept his head down, walking. Briskly toward his car. "Is it true your son might face jail time?" One journalist yelled, "T.I." Didn't respond. But the slight clench of his jaw said enough. Inside the Harris home, the atmosphere was suffocating. King had barely spoken to his parents since their explosive argument. He spent most of his time in his room, scrolling through social media posts about himself. Some fans defended him, others mocked him, and a few called him a lost cause. That word stuck with him. Lost cause. He repeated it to himself late at night, staring at the ceiling. Wondering if that's what his father thought too? Tiny tried to keep the peace, moving quietly between her husband and her son. She'd bring food to King's room, checking on him like he was still her little boy. But each time she looked into his tired eyes, she saw the weight of shame and confusion. One night, she sat at the edge of his bed and whispered, "Baby, your daddy loves you. He's just hurt." King didn't respond. He just looked away and said he only cares about what people think. He's embarrassed, not hurt. Those words broke Tiny's heart. She knew T.I. loved his son deeply, but she also knew he struggled to show it when his pride was on the line. Later that night, when T.I. walked into the kitchen, she confronted him. "You need to talk to him," she said softly. Not as T.I. the rapper. Not as a man trying to protect his image. As his father. T.I. sighed, running a hand over his face. "I don't even know what to say, Tiny. Every time I open my mouth, it turns into a fight." Tiny stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Then maybe stop talking and start listening." The next day, T.I. tried. He knocked on King's door, waited a few seconds, and walked in. King sat at his desk, headphones on, pretending not to notice. T.I. sat on the bed quietly for a moment before speaking. "Look, man, I know things got out of hand. I was angry, and I said things I shouldn't have. But I need you to understand I'm scared for you. I've been where you're heading, and it's not a place you want to go." King took off his headphones, but didn't look up. "You think I don't know that? You think I want to end up like that?" His voice cracked slightly, revealing the fear behind his attitude. T.I. leaned forward, lowering his tone. "Then show me you don't. Because right now, all the world sees is another black kid throwing his life away. I can't let that happen to my son." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then King finally looked up, eyes wet. "It's too late, Dad. Everybody already thinks I'm a criminal." T.I. shook his head. "The only thing too late is giving up. And I didn't raise no quitter." It was the closest thing to reconciliation they'd had in weeks. Tiny, listening from the hallway, wiped away tears. For the first time since the arrest, she felt a small spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, her family could find its way back. But just as things began to calm down, another storm hit. A new witness came forward, claiming that King wasn't just involved in the nightclub altercation, he was the one who started it. The witness alleged that King had thrown the first punch after someone insulted his family name. Within hours, the story made headlines. And suddenly the case that T.I. thought was cooling down caught fire all over again. The phone started ringing nonstop. T.I.'s lawyer, longtime friend Mike, delivered the bad news. Tip, they got footage. It's grainy, but it looks like King took the first swing. They're pushing for a harsher charge. T.I. felt his chest tighten. "You're telling me they want to make an example out of my boy?" Mike hesitated. "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Tani overheard the conversation and broke down. "They can't do this, Tip. He's just a kid." But T.I. knew the system wasn't kind to kids like his, especially kids with famous last names and public tempers. That night, T.I. called an emergency family meeting. His older kids, Zanik and Domani, came over to offer support. The living room was tense, the air heavy with worry. T.I. stood in front of them, speaking with a mix of anger and desperation. "They're trying to tear us down, y'all. They want to see us fall apart, and I'll be damned if I let that happen." Zonique crossed her arms. "Daddy, we love King, but you can't fight every battle for him. He's got to take responsibility too." King, sitting off to the side, snapped back. "You don't even know what happened, Nix. Everybody's acting like I killed somebody." "You didn't," Domani said calmly, "but you acted like you had something to prove. And now look." The argument grew louder, voices overlapping, frustrations boiling over. Tiny tried to intervene again, pleading, "Please, y'all, stop. This isn't helping." But the family was already unraveling. Finally, T.I. raised his voice, silencing everyone. "Enough. This is my family, my son, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect him." His tone was final, almost trembling. Everyone went quiet. King stared at him for a long time before muttering, "You keep saying that, but it always feels like you're protecting yourself." Those words cut deep. T.I. turned away, clenching his fists. For once, he had no comeback. In the days that followed, the situation grew darker. Prosecutors released a statement saying they were reviewing new evidence. The possibility of jail time was now on the table. Fans were shocked. Social media erupted with reactions ranging from outrage to pity. "This is a tragedy waiting to happen," one post read. "T.I. worked so hard to build his empire, and now his own son might tear it down." Inside the Harris home, the silence was unbearable. Tiny barely slept. King stopped eating regularly. And T.I., once the confident leader of the household, began to crumble under the weight of public judgment. One night, unable to sleep, he went out for a drive. He cruised through the quiet streets of Atlanta, his mind replaying every decision, every warning he'd ever given his son. "Maybe I was too hard on him," he whispered to himself. "Maybe I was trying to make him me instead of letting him be him." He pulled over near an old neighborhood where he grew up, the same streets that shaped his rise from hustler to hip-hop mogul. The flashing memories hit him, the arrests, the lessons, the second chances. He realized then how fragile the line was between success and self-destruction. And now, his son was walking that same line. The next morning, I made a decision. He called Mike, his lawyer, and said, "Do whatever it takes. I don't care what it costs. My son's not going to prison." Mike hesitated, then replied, "I'll make some calls. But Tip, you gotta prepare yourself. This ain't just about money anymore. This is politics, reputation, and timing. They want blood." T.I. hung up and turned to Tiny, his expression heavy but determined. "They might want blood," he said quietly, "but they ain't getting my boys." What he didn't know was that forces outside the courtroom were already working against him. A rival promoter, someone with a grudge from the past, had been feeding stories to the press, twisting facts to make King look guilty. The goal wasn't justice, it was revenge. And soon, the Harris family would discover just how deep that betrayal went. As the third week rolled in, the air around the Harris household grew colder, heavier, almost suffocating. The once lively home that echoed with laughter and music was now filled with whispers, closed doors, and the haunting hum of television news anchors discussing King's case. Everywhere they turned, there were headlines. T.I.'s son facing serious time. Celebrity privilege questioned. New evidence surfaces in King Harris brawl case. The world was watching not out of concern, but out of hunger for scandal. Tiny woke up early every morning, sitting by the kitchen window with her coffee, scrolling through her phone in silence. She'd pause on fan comments, reading them over and over. Some supportive, most cruel. "They don't even know him," she whispered one morning, her voice cracking. "They don't know my baby." I walked in, exhausted, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. "You've got to stop reading that mess, Tiny. People don't care about the truth. They just want a story." She looked up at him, frustration spilling over. "And that's exactly what they're getting. Tip, a story. but not the truth. That same morning, the family's lawyer, Mike, called with an update. The tone of his voice made T.I.'s stomach drop before the words even came. Tip: they've decided to move forward with the case. They're not dropping it. T.I. slammed his fist on the counter, his voice low but trembling. You said we had a chance. You said we had a chance. We did, Mike replied, but they're pushing hard. There's too much media attention. The prosecutor sees this as a chance to make a statement. Nobody's above the law, that kind of thing. Tiny covered her mouth, tears forming again. They're using our child as a headline, she said quietly. T.I. took a deep breath, pacing the floor. No, they're not about to make an example out of my family. I'm not letting that happen. He decided then and there that he wasn't just going to fight in the courtroom, he was going to fight in the public eye. Later that afternoon, he called a press conference. Tiny was hesitant. Tip, you sure this is the right move? She asked, worry etched all over her face. He nodded. If they want to turn this into a show, I'll give them one. But they gone here our side. When T.I. stepped up to the podium, the flashes of cameras were blinding. Reporters leaned forward, ready to twist his every word. His voice was steady, but full of emotion. As a father, I stand by my son. Yes, mistakes were made, but this is not a criminal. This is a young man learning about life. Under a spotlight none of y'all could survive under. I've been there. I've seen what the system does to black boys who ain't got nobody fighting for them. But my son got me, the crowd murmured, scribbling every word. One reporter shouted, so you admit he's guilty? T.I. narrowed his eyes. I admit he's human. That's what y'all seem to forget. The clip went viral within hours. Fans flooded social media with mixed reactions. Some praised him for standing up for his son, calling him a real father. Others accused him of using his fame to manipulate the narrative. He's doing damage control, not parenting, one critic wrote. But behind the scenes, things were getting even more complicated. A new video surfaced clearer than the previous ones. It showed King, surrounded by friends, confronting another man at the club. Words were exchanged, and then King shoved the man first. There it was, undeniable proof that he started the fight. The videos spread across social media like wildfire, undoing every bit of sympathy T.I. had fought for. That night, T.I. and Tiny watched the video together in silence. King walked in halfway through, his face pale as he realized what it was. Where did that even come from? He asked, panic rising in his voice. Doesn't matter where it came from, T, I said coldly. It matters that it's out there. So that's it then? King snapped. You think I'm guilty too? T.I. stood up, trying to keep his composure. It ain't about what I think. It's about what they're gonna do with that video. And right now, son, it don't look good. You always care about how things look? King shot back, his voice shaking with anger. You don't even care how I feel. Tiny stepped between them, pleading softly. Please, not again. Not tonight. But it was too late. The shouting had already started. You don't listen. T.I. yelled. You keep thinking the world owes you something. You walk around like you untouchable, but now reality's knocking on the door. And whose fault is that? King fired back. You raised me like this. You taught me to never back down. So don't get mad when I act like you. Those words hit T.I. harder than any headline ever could. For a second, the room went silent. Even Tiny froze, her hand over her chest. T.I. finally spoke, his voice quieter, almost breaking. You're right. I did teach you that. I taught you to fight, but I was supposed to teach you when not to. King didn't respond. He turned, grabbed his jacket, and stormed out. The front door slammed, echoing through the house. Tiny rushed to follow, but T.I. stopped her. Let him go, he said softly. Maybe he needs to cool off. But deep down, fear clawed at him. He'd seen that look in his son's eyes before, the same lost. Angry look he'd once seen in himself as a young man trying to prove something. Hours passed with no word from King. Tiny couldn't sit still, pacing the floor and calling his phone over and over. No answer. It was nearly 3 in the morning when T.I. finally received a call. Not from King, but from one of his friends. "Hey man, King's at some motel on the east side. He's just sitting there, not talking to nobody." Without a word, T.I. grabbed his keys and left. When he arrived, he found King sitting on the curb outside the motel, hoodie pulled over his head, cigarette in hand. For a long time, neither of them said anything. T.I. sat beside him, staring at the streetlights flickering above. Finally, he spoke. "You trying to smoke your problems away now?" King smirked weakly. "Guess I learned that from you too." T.I. chuckled under his breath, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah, well, I learned it ain't worth it. The problems don't go nowhere. They just wait for you to sober up." King took a deep breath, his voice small. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Dad. I felt like everybody was watching me, waiting for me to mess up. And when that dude said I was just T.I.'s kid, I lost it. I wanted to prove I was my own person." T.I. looked at him, his tone soft but firm. "And now look what proving it got you. Fame don't make you a man, son. Choices do." For the first time in weeks, King's guard dropped. He looked at his father, eyes wet with tears he'd been holding back. "I messed up." T.I. put a hand on his shoulder. "Yeah, you did. But you've still got a chance to make it right. We all do." They sat there for a long time, saying nothing more. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was the start. The next morning, T.I. took King home. Tiny rushed to him, holding him tightly. "Don't ever do that to me again," she sobbed. King mumbled, "I'm sorry, Mama." But even as the family tried to heal, the outside world refused to let go. The district attorney announced that King's hearing would be scheduled within the next 2 weeks. Fans were anxious. Media outlets circled like vultures. And the Harris family braced themselves for what could be the most difficult chapter of their lives. Little did they know, an unexpected twist was just around the corner. One that would not only change the case, but expose secrets. The family thought were buried forever. The morning of the court hearing arrived like a storm. The family had long feared, but couldn't avoid. The sky was gray, rain tapping against the car windows as T.I., Tiny, and King sat silently on their way downtown. Not a single word was spoken. The city outside moved like a blur. Flashing lights, umbrellas, the distant sound of reporters already gathered outside the courthouse. Inside the car, tension wrapped around them like a fog. King sat in the back seat, staring out the window, his reflection pale and tired. He hadn't slept the night before. Every possible outcome played in his mind over and over again, the judge's words. The cameras, the shame. Tiny turned slightly in her seat to face him. Her voice was soft but trembling. "Baby, no matter what happens today, we love you. You understand me?" King nodded slowly, eyes still fixed on the rain. T.I. kept his hands on the wheel, jaw tight. "Yeah," he muttered, "we love you. But we also need you to face this like a man. No running, no attitude, no excuses. You look that judge in the eye and own your mistakes." King didn't answer, but Tiny reached out and squeezed his hand. "He'll be all right," she whispered. God got him. The courthouse was chaos. Cameras flashed the moment the black SUV pulled up. T.I.T. Over here," reporters shouted. "How's your son feeling today? Do you think fame gives him a free pass?" Others yelled questions about King's charges, about whether T.I. had pulled strings to delay the trial. Security had to clear a path as the family walked in. King kept his hood up, but the noise, the cameras, the energy, it was suffocating. Inside the courtroom, the mood shifted. The air was cold and still, the whispers of spectators echoing faintly. The judge entered and everyone stood. King took a deep breath as his name was called. He stood beside his lawyer, trying to appear calm, but his hands trembled slightly. T.I. Slightly. T.I. And Tiny sat in the front row, holding on to each other. The weight of every choice, every headline, every sleepless night pressing down on them. The prosecutor began with confidence, laying out the case piece by piece, the fight, the video, the witnesses. Each detail felt like a punch to the gut. Mr. Harris initiated physical contact. The prosecutor stated, his tone cold. Despite being asked to leave, he escalated the situation, endangering others in the establishment. This was not a misunderstanding. It was entitlement. Tiny covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. T.I. clenched his fists, muttering under his breath, entitlement. That's what you call a mistake. His lawyer placed a hand on his arm to keep him seated. Then came the defense. Mike stood tall, his voice steady and firm. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened that night wasn't about entitlement, it was about emotion. A young man under pressure, surrounded by cameras, insults, and provocation. Yes, he reacted poorly. But this is not a criminal. This is a boy who made a mistake in front of the world. He turned toward King. Tell them what you told me. The courtroom went silent. King stepped forward slightly, his voice low but clear. I messed up. I let my anger take over. I shouldn't have put my hands on nobody. I was wrong. Paused, swallowing hard. But I ain't no monster. I just want a chance to make things right. The room was still. Even the prosecutor looked caught off guard by the sincerity in King's voice. T.I. lowered his head, quietly exhaling. Tiny wiped her eyes, whispering, "That's my baby." Just when it seemed the hearing might end quietly, something unexpected happened. A man from the back of the courtroom stood up, asking to speak. Murmurs filled the room as the judge hesitated, then allowed him to step forward. The man introduced himself as a former employee at the club, a security guard who had worked that night. Your Honor. He said, I was there when it happened. That video everybody's showing. It don't tell the whole story. The other guy, the one who got hit, he swung first. The camera angle just missed it. King did push him, yeah, but only after being hit. And he didn't start the fight. He was trying to protect one of his friends who got shoved. Gasps filled the courtroom. T.I. looked up sharply, eyes wide. The prosecutor objected, claiming the man's statement was unverified, but the judge allowed it to be heard. The man continued they only showed half the truth. That's not fair to him. The revelation changed everything. The energy in the room shifted instantly. The prosecutor stumbled over his next words, clearly thrown off. Tiny grabbed T.I.'s hand tightly, whispering, "Thank you, Jesus." After a short recess, the judge returned with a decision. Given the new testimony and evidence, the court will not pursue jail time. Instead, Mr. Harris will serve 100 hours of community service and enroll in anger management. This court hopes this experience serves as a lesson in responsibility. Tiny burst into tears, covering her face. T.I. exhaled deeply, his shoulders finally relaxing for the first time in weeks. King stood frozen, unsure whether to smile or cry. The judge looked at him directly. You've got a chance here, young man. Don't waste it. As they exited the courthouse, cameras and reporters swarmed again, shouting for statements. T.I. put his arm around his son protectively and said, only justice was served. But behind closed doors, the emotional storm continued. That night, back home, the family sat together for dinner. For once, the house felt calm. The tension that had been hanging in the air for weeks began to fade. T.I. looked at his son quietly. For a long moment before speaking, you know how close that was, right? King nodded. Yeah, I know. Good, T.I. said softly. Because next time, there might not be a guard to save you. You've got to start thinking before you move. Life don't always give second chances. King looked up at him. I know, Dad. I was tired of feeling like I'm living in your shadow. Like everything I do gotta be perfect or people gonna say I'm a failure. T.I. nodded slowly. You ain't gotta be perfect. You just gotta be real. That's the difference. I didn't build this name so you could live in it. I built it so you could stand on it. Tiny smiled softly, finally seeing her family talking, not fighting. We all learning, she said. All of us. This ain't just about King, it's about us too. Later that night, as King sat in his room, he scrolled through social media. This time the comments were different. Fans praised him for owning up, for speaking honestly in court. Some even apologized for judging him too soon. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel angry, he felt free. Meanwhile, T.I stood on the balcony, looking out over the Atlanta skyline. The city lights flickered, and for a moment, he thought about everything that had happened. The fights, the fear, the humiliation. He'd fought for his son's freedom, and, in doing so, found something deeper. A reminder of what it truly meant to be a father. Tiny joined him quietly, leaning against the railing. "You did good today," she said softly. T.I shook his head. "Yeah, we did good. Took both of us to keep this family standing." She smiled. "So what now?" He looked out at the city one more time and said, "Now we rebuild. Not the image, not the name, the love." In the days that followed, King began his community service at a youth center, speaking to kids about choices, pressure, and consequences. Videos of his talks went viral, showing a different side of him, humbled, sincere, and determined to change. Fans were shocked, calling it a redemption arc no one saw coming. T.I and Tiny watched from a distance, proud but cautious. They knew the journey wasn't over. Fame had a way of testing people again and again. But for now, peace had returned, fragile but real as the sun set one evening. King posted a photo on his Instagram, a picture of him and his father standing together, smiling. The caption read, "Ain't no freedom like family." Fans flooded the comments with hearts, prayers, and words of support. The Harris family, once torn apart by chaos, was finding its way back one hard-earned moment at a time. But as the cameras slowly turned away and the noise of the headlines faded, one truth remained behind every scandal, every headline, and every fall from grace. There was still a story of love, imperfect, loud, painful, but unbreakable. And for T.I, that was the only victory that ever truly mattered. So, after weeks of chaos, courtroom battles, and emotional heartbreak, the Harris family finally found a fragile peace. T.I stood tall, not just as a rapper or celebrity, but as a father who refused to give up on his son. King faced his mistakes head-on and showed the world a glimpse of the man he's becoming. But even now, fans can't help but wonder, is this truly the end of the drama, or just another calm before the next storm? Rumors are already swirling that there's more to the story than what we've seen. Some insiders say new footage might surface, while others claim that T.I is quietly planning a major documentary to tell the truth his way. Whatever happens next, one thing's for sure: this family story is far from over. And if there's one lesson in all this, it's that fame doesn't protect anyone from pain. And love doesn't always come easy, but it's worth fighting for. T.I fought for his son's freedom, and in the process, fought for his family's soul. Fans everywhere are still divided. Was it redemption or reputation management? Did King truly change, or is he just getting started on a new chapter that might bring even more controversy? Now we want to hear from you. What do you think really happened behind the scenes? Did T.I do the right thing by defending his son? Or should he have let King face the full weight of his actions? Drop your thoughts down below in the comments and join the discussion, because this story has everyone talking. Make sure you hit that like button if you felt the emotion in this one, and subscribe for more exclusive updates, breakdowns, and deep dives into the biggest moments shaking up the entertainment world. Turn on your notifications so you never miss the next twist in the saga. Because if there's one thing we know about the Harris family, it's that their story is far from finished. Stay tuned. Far from finished. Stay tuned.